Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 752B, and today's date is August 28th, 2015, and the title of this episode is U.S. is committed to removing Assad once the takeover of Syria is complete. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. Tomorrow, Saturday, I'll be uploading an interview with Charles Hugh Smith. If you're on the X22report.com email alert system, you will get an email. If you signed up to the YouTube channel, X22 Report Spotlight, YouTube should send you an email. If not, just come to the YouTube channel and you'll see the video there. Or you can come to the X22report.com site. You'll see the video on the right-hand side. Let's get right into the economic collapse geopolitical news. Now, we understand, and we talked about this before, that Ashley Madison, they were cyber attacked. Information was leaked. And we know there's a lot of names on their database of people who signed up, used their credit card. And one of them is Josh Duggar. The other one is Joe Biden's son, Hunter. And they're trying to explain away why it's really not him. Basically what they're saying is they think it's international agents that placed his name on Ashley Madison to tarnish his reputation. He said most likely it's probably the Russians because they don't like that he's on the board in Ukraine. So they probably put his name on there and they're setting him up. Does Russia really care about Hunter Biden being on the board of an energy company in Ukraine? I really don't think so. But when you look deeper into this story, you see that his name most likely was there because of him. Because when you see where it was created from the IP address, it was at Georgetown University, where he was teaching. The email address provided for Robert Biden's account matched a personal email address once used by Biden, the vice president's son confirmed. But account information shows that the profile, which was confirmed by a credit card purchase in 2014, was used at the latitude and longitude point of 38.912682 by minus 77.071704. And the latitude longitude point just happens to exist on the Georgetown University campus at an administrative building on Reservoir Road, and Hunter Biden just happened to be teaching there around the time the account was set up. So at this point, it seems like, he actually joined it himself. And the reporters actually went to ask him about this, and they said they had no comment. So basically, they were caught. And we can see at this point in time that hackers who access different systems have the ability to do this because the NSA really left back doors open. Because the strong encryption that we had to be weakened to allow the NSA through the back doors. And this is why everyone needs to take responsibility. I mean, I know we're talking about this information. This is the guy's personal information. It's his business with his wife and what he does. It's really nobody else's business. And for everybody else, everything that you do is completely private. This is why you don't walk around going, hey, I had an affair. Hey, guess what? My valuables are in the safe, and this is the combination. Because under the Constitution, we are allowed privacy. That's why we have the Fourth Amendment. This is why you need a warrant. But thanks to the NSA weakening encryption, having backdoors into the system, it makes it easier for real criminals to get that information. And this is why you need to take protection. This is why you have to protect yourself. So the government, the hackers, can't get your information. I mean, we know the credit cards have the RFID chips in them. And as you walk by, people can have scanners and they can scan the information and get that information right off the card. They're not secure. So to secure that, what do? Well, you got to use something to protect it. You can use blocketpockets.com sleeves. They're made of copper, silver. They're intertwined into the fabric, and it blocks the signal. Same thing with the new driver's license that are coming out. They have RFID chips in them. You can use that and slide them into the sleeve, and it will protect you from somebody walking by or the government spying on you. You can use them for your phone, for your laptops. You can use Start Page, which is a service that hooks into Google, that does your searches, but keeps you anonymous. You can even use a proxy server so Google doesn't know where you're doing the search from. You can write your own encryption. But the point of all this is to completely keep your information private and to protect yourself. This is why everybody needs to do this. Now, I just want to update everyone on what happened with the Virginia journalist shooting. Right now, they're saying that both the cameraman, Adam Ward, and Allison Parker, they're being classified as homicides. They're saying they were shot and also shot in the head. But what's very interesting about all this, and I referred to the video that I had in my report yesterday, that there are some inconsistencies where the person being interviewed didn't look away. The person came up with the gun. I mean, nobody saw this in the corner of their eye. The news reporter was shot at point blank range, and she was able to run away. So there was a lot of inconsistencies here. And here's another one. 2 BBC journalists who were covering the Virginia shooting on Wednesday say they were threatened by Virginia police after filming the scene where the gunman Bryce Williams crashed and shot himself. They say police officers threatened to confiscate their camera and car if they did not delete their footage. Well, that's very interesting. Why would they do this? First of all, that's basically of a violation of the First, Fourth, and 14th Amendment. And yes, they are allowed to film to get the information. But they were threatening the journalists. And then you have to think, why would they do that? Now, we understand the United States government central bankers, they're getting ready for this complete collapse. They know people are going to be rioting. They know they're going to come after the U.S. government central bankers. And we know at this point they've been taking precautions. They created DHS, of course, which is the police force of the White House. And we know right now they've been fortifying government buildings. The White House in particular. They had the fence jumper, and all of a sudden, we need spikes. We need a buffer zone with another fence. We need additional guards. And now there's a new report from, which is DHS backed. They looked at the fence in the White House with the spikes on it, with the buffer zone with another fence. And they're saying, listen, this fence is too low. And we need to make it much, much higher for better protection. And they're saying it's crucial at this point in time to do it as quickly as possible. Really? They're that afraid of the American people that they need to raise the fence and do it as fast as possible. Another indicator that something else is going on here, because they're really not worried about fence jumpers. I mean, come on. They're worried about many, many people going towards the fence and trying to get over it. That's what they're worried about. Now, out in Australia, we see there's a multi-agency crackdown in central Melbourne that would have involved freshly empowered immigration officers checking visas to see if they've been canceled. The crackdown, called Operation Fortitude, would see officers placed in key spots in Melbourne's business centre. The operation would be one of the first for the newly established paramilitary organization, which was created on July 1st by a merger of assets and functions of the now defunct Customs and Border Protection Service and part of the Department of Immigration and Border Protection. The reform gave the ABF officers with the power to detain offenders carrying weapons and gather intelligence. They allowed them to carry weapons, I should say, and gather intelligence. Officers were also issued military-style uniforms to complement their new authority. And they plan to go out there and to stop everyday people and ask for their IDs, basically. And activists were out there saying, this is absolutely ridiculous. This is racial profiling. This is completely against our rights. And they took to social media, had protests in the streets of Melbourne, and say, absolutely not. So you can see where this is headed. It's called a police state, where they go around going, papers, please. That's what they wanted to do in their military uniform. We are seeing this everywhere now. Police look like military. We see it in Europe, Australia, Canada, United States. What are they getting ready for? This economic collapse. They're prepared and ready. And you will see a complete change when this whole system comes down. This whole thing, all these countries will be on lockdown. Most likely martial law. Now, as we know, things are really heating up in Ukraine. Right now, Kiev is not getting their gas from Russia. They're getting it from the EU. They're stockpiling their gas because they know they cannot be dependent on Russia. They also cut off the electricity from Russia. And we know they just did a restructuring of their debt. They had a debt write-off. Russia is looking for their $3 billion. And of course, because of this debt restructure, the U.S. is going to be on the hook for this money, which really tells you that the taxpayers of the U.S. are going to have to pay. So from everything that's been going on, from the start of this coup d'etat to replace the government, the U.S. taxpayer has been paying for all of this. For Ukraine, for this war, for their economy completely dying. And we are continually paying for all of this. And they are ramping up the war in Ukraine. Right now, the Treasury Department here in the United States is saying to Ukraine, listen, move swiftly to complete the debt restructuring. The only thing Ukraine is not going to do is cut their defense spending. They will not cut any of this. Actually, it's going to increase. Why? Because we have a war coming up. Poroshenko just signed secret military tech deal with anonymous allies. We don't know what he signed or what he's going to do, but we know he did it. The details of the document are being kept a secret. Right now, the U.S. just said we are fully prepared to fight Putin to the last Ukraine. And we know this. They don't care about the people in the country. The central bankers didn't get what they paid for. They paid for the southeastern region. They paid for Crimea. They want the natural resources, the coal, the natural gas, the strategic location. And guess what? They're doing whatever they can to push this war. Right now, here in the United States, the corporate media is saying, oh my God, the Ukraine, they lost 7 troops in the fight with East Ukraine right now. And it's all their fault. Well, the part they left out was Kiev has been firing on southeastern Ukraine. And they're starting to fire back now because how much can you take? They are provoking them at every turn. The OSCE is saying the Donetsk airport is a place where things are completely getting out of control, and Kiev is continually shelling in that area. We are going to see a major turn coming very soon. It's ramping up right now. The Minsk II agreement is dead, and we knew it was when it was enacted. They agreed to it so Kiev could build up its forces. Southeastern people didn't have to do it. They were winning. They pushed the troops all the way back into Mariupol, and the Kiev troops were decimated. They could have marched all the way into Kiev if they wanted to. But at this point, we see what's happening. We see because of the North Korea and the South Korea incident, South Korea right now is going to sharply increase its defense budget. What do you think is happening here? Everyone is getting ready for war, preparing, increasing their budgets, moving military assets. I mean, China and Russia, they're still making deals around the world. Economic deals. Russia right now is trying to talk to both North and South Korea to open up a Korean corridor, to have trade peacefully, and to connect to Russia's railroad. Will he succeed? We will have to see. We understand that the U.S. government right now is very worried about domestic drones. And right now, Boeing has created a new weapon against domestic drones, or any type of commercial type of drone. It's called the Compact Laser Weapon System. It's transportable at 650 pounds. It can be assembled in 15 minutes, and it generates an energy beam of about 10 kilowatts to bring down the target up to 22 miles away. And if you noticed, during all the areas in Washington, D.C., they kept using commercial drones and saying, okay, we need to ban them. And we understand that they know that a lot of people have these commercial drones. A lot of people fly them. A lot of people have cameras. They can be fitted with different type of weapons. And they know this. This is why they're trying to get rid of the weapons. This is why they're trying to get rid of the drones. Now they have a weapon to bring down the commercial drones. They're doing this because they understand what is coming. Out in Iran, for years we heard Parchin. That's where the nuclear bomb is being created. Israel even bombed that area, and we've come to find out that no, there was no nuclear weapon there whatsoever. Well, the U.S. Department finally came out and said it. They acknowledge that Iran's Parchin site is a conventional military facility. There is no nuclear weapon activity there whatsoever. Nothing. Like I said, all this was hype for 30 years. Propaganda to make you believe they were creating a nuclear weapon. And all this was all about was getting into their central bank and getting their natural resources. That's what this whole nuclear deal is about. That's the cover story. The real story is how they need to prop up the dollar. Kerry let it slip out. If we don't make this deal, the dollar collapses. And that's one thing I agree with him on. This whole Yemen fight that Saudi Arabia started with the U.S. help, because Yemen didn't invade Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia invaded Yemen. Right now, there's about 4,500 people killed in this war since Saudi Arabia began bombing 150 days ago. 23,000 more have been wounded. Why? Because the people of that country kicked out the puppet government. And the U.S. does not like this, because once they put a puppet government in there, it's supposed to stay there. And if it doesn't, the U.S. government, with the help of whatever force they're going to use, Saudi Arabia, they'll teach the people a lesson. And that's what's been happening there. Now, I'm getting the funny feeling that something's going to be happening in Libya very, very soon, because all of a sudden, Libya's landline phone system broke down. The underwater cables were damaged somehow. The cell phone networks have been cut out. I think what they're doing at this point is they're cutting off communication. I think they're getting ready for something in Libya. Almost like in Syria when they shut down the power, they shut everything down. It looks like the same thing is happening in Libya. We see the Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Bogdanov and U.S. Special Envoy for Syria Michael Ratney. They had talks about Syria, about terrorism. And right now, Putin, Russia, is saying, listen, we will help you fight the terrorists, the Islamic State. We'll join up with you. And you have to remember, the Islamic State is the proxy army for the United States government central bankers. So for them to say no kind of puts them in a bad light, because you don't want their help to fight terrorism. And actually, Putin kind of backed the U.S. into a corner. I mean, think about what's going on here. The United States created the Islamic State to be a proxy army to get Assad. They didn't include China, they didn't include Russia to join in to fight terrorism. And now Russia wants to join in. They want to join up with Syria and say, yeah, let's go after them. This puts the U.S. in a troubled position because that's not their plan. And every American taxpayer has been, it costs us $10 million a day to fight the proxy army that the U.S. government central bankers created. So we're on the hook right now. Of course, this is all odious debt. But right now, we're on the hook for $10 million a day to fight the army that's non-existent, to fight the terrorists that are non-existent. Think about this for a second. The U.S. says right now they are committed to transition away from Assad. Once we take control of Syria, Assad will be removed. They still have the same goal. The U.S. State Department on Friday repeated its commitment to a political transition to remove Assad. The U.S. government central bankers, they don't care if it's political or if they have to use force. The goal is still the same. They want Assad removed. Putin is stepping in. He's trying to de-escalate the situation. He's trying to work out a peace agreement to keep his ally in power because he knows what happens if he is removed. The U.S. is just going to come in with a puppet government, take over the entire country, and then start splitting up the Middle East. And he's trying to work things out, but at this point in time, it might be too late because we're at the end game right now. And the U.S. government central bankers know this, and they know they need to remove Assad no matter what to prop up the system, make sure they have the deal with Iran, and they know eventually they're going to have to go into Iran and remove that government. This whole peace deal is only going to be temporary because as time goes on, they're going to realize they don't need the dollar anymore, and they're going to trade their oil for yuan, ruble, gold, everything but the dollar. So we can see at this point, this system is coming down. You need to be prepared. You need to be ready. Because we know this whole thing's collapsing. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and please, especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.